Hello again, Thousanders. We find ourselves at the end of another year. It's hard to believe 2018 is coming to a close, and Emma and I are back to talk about our favorite books, the favorite books that we read during this year, 2018. So we each have 4 books, and we're going to share, just switch off, go back and forth. So Emma, why don't you go ahead and share your first book and why you loved it so much?
My first book is Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes. Now, you may have heard about this book in our last video, and I tried it for him, and I actually really liked it. The way the author writes, it's like eating chocolate all day long.
I like it.
You never get sick of it.
I like it a lot. I agree. Ray Bradbury is awesome. So I'm really glad you enjoyed that particular book, Emma. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm almost done with the book that she gave me. So great.
He's actually really liking it.
So I have 2 fiction and then 2 nonfiction, and I actually have not quite decided yet what was my favorite fiction and what was my favorite nonfiction. It's been very hard. I'll have to come to a decision, but it's been a fantastic year for reading, for me, in my opinion. But the first one that I wanted to talk about is a book called O Pioneers by Willa Cather. And a few years back, Death Comes for the Archbishop, which was also written by Willa Cather, was my favorite book that I read of that year. And I really feel like this book kind of cemented her in my mind as a literary genius. This is
like Ray Bradbury.
Like Ray Bradbury. This is an incredible book, both simple, profound, emotionally moving and compelling, but also not, despondent. Doesn't make you despair, like some literature, that might be similar to it. You might think of John Steinbeck or somebody like that, but it's just a fantastic book. I loved it.
My second book is The Unnaturals, The Battle Begins. It's the first book in a series of only 2 books, but it's actually pretty good. For all you animal book-loving fans, this might actually be pretty good because it's like about the future and how humans will associate with animals maybe then.
Interesting. Unnatural. And show them the cover again so they know what it looks like there. Unnaturals, The Battle Begins. Very good. The next book, this is nonfiction. This is an oldie but a goldie. The Theory of Moral Sentiments by Adam Smith. This is it's long, but I've read longer books. You're gonna work for it to read this book,
like Lord of the Rings.
I'd probably say even a little bit more than Lord of the Rings. What I was so impressed with by this book is that Adam Smith, who most people might know from The Wealth of Nations, Father of Capitalism, things like that, well, there is a whole lot more to the story than just The Wealth of Nations, which I've also read. This one, Smith was a moral philosopher before he was an economist, and this was written before Wealth of Nations, and the insights and the observations that he makes in this book, hundreds of years ago, scientists, psychologists, even marketers, economists are claiming that they're discovering these things now, or have discovered certain facts about life and living and human beings over the last 50 years. Adam Smith was onto it hundreds of years ago, and I was so impressed with his insights. It was a challenging book. It was a very thoughtful book, a very thought-provoking book. So if you're willing to put in the work and put in the effort, absolutely fantastic book, Theory of Moral Sentiments. Go ahead.
My third book is the book series Foxcraft. It's a pretty good book series, but I warn you, after the second book, you might be, this is a bit more of a sad book series. The cookie comes out of the pot in the third book. I mean, the third book's pretty interesting.
The cookie comes out of the pot in the third book. Okay. All right, my next fiction book, one that I'm probably a handful of people are aware of and have heard of before, Flowers for Algernon. Flowers for Algernon is a sci-fi book, but I would call it sci-fi light. The sci-fi elements are not the focus of the book. It's a sad book. It's a challenging book, but essentially the story is that there is a mentally handicapped man who undergoes a procedure and is able to, his mental and intellectual capacities increase exponentially, but then they start to degrade. And the entire book is told through journal entries of the main character, Charlie, and Charlie Gordon. And it's really... it's a really moving book. It's a book that I finished and I thought about for days and days and days after I had finished the book. It really stuck with me in a powerful way. I didn't find it so, desperate and sad that I, never recovered or anything like that. But it is sad, but I think there are some lessons to be found here and some insights to be had that are well worth the effort.
So why is there a mouse on the front cover?
So that's Algernon. Algernon is a mouse that the main character, Charlie Gordon, develops a relationship with because they undergo the same procedure. And so Algernon, the mouse, ends up becoming very, very intelligent for a mouse at the same time that Charlie ends up becoming very, very intelligent. Okay, what's your last one, Emma?
So my last book is for all you game players. If you play World of Warcraft, one of my favorite books that's like part of the lore and stuff is the World of Warcraft Chronicle series. It's a really good, the series is really good if you're like a lore lover of games. Although I think they're like $40 each, so you better be willing to dig in deep.
Holy cow, yes.
And they are very thick. They are very thick and long.
Cool. But if you're into the lore and the fantasy stuff, then you've got some good stuff to
challenge
enjoy
for
there.
a while.
Good.
There's 3 books in the series.
Awesome. The last book that we're going to talk about today is my second nonfiction book, and is a book called The Professor and the Madman. The Professor and the Madman. I heard about this book on a podcast, and it has one of the most shocking moments I have ever read, both fiction and nonfiction in a book, and I certainly won't spoil it here. It's a pretty short book. It's actually not very long, especially for a nonfiction book of
It
this.
looks thick, but not one of those super thick.
It's really not too bad.
Lord of the Rings altogether, though.
Not for a nonfiction. But essentially, the story is it's the creation of the Oxford English Dictionary, and how there is a man extremely, extremely mentally ill, the madman, who ends up becoming a prolific contributor to the creation of the Oxford English Dictionary. And the relationship that he creates with the professor who headed up the project to create the Oxford English Dictionary for quite a few years, and how, just through the odd course of life, people get entangled with one another, and it's one of those stranger than fiction type of stories, and it's wonderful. Really, really wonderful book. So those are our favorite books that we read in 2018. We hope that you
may try them.
We hope that you might try them out, and we hope that you read a lot of awesome books in 2018, and I'm sure you, like we, are looking forward to 2019.
Yep. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.